Hello. So I hope you can hear me. Hope I'm not blocking the microphone. You're in a tree. I wanted to talk a little bit today about when I was when they managed to section me, when they managed to get me into a mental hospital. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that today. So I've mentioned before when they cuckooed me out my house, and I went to 3 different police stations in Scotland to try and get help, and all of them disregarded me. I've been into that in past videos, you can go and have a look at them if you feel so inclined. So I eventually left Scotland after more and more things happened. A few months after this, more and more things kept happening. They kept, the craziness that they surround you in the beginning of this, try to totally break you, break your mind and make you think that you are going crazy. Eventually packed a bag and left Scotland. Just put some clothes in a bag and left in my car, and I slept in my car for a while. Eventually I sold my car because I had no money. I needed, I never had an income. I'd been mobbed out my job, etc. So I sold my car, and then I was a mixture of sleeping rough and staying in cheap B&Bs, and eventually I thought, fuck this, why am I doing this? I'm running away. I'm in the south of England now. I have my own home in Scotland that they've forced me out of. This is bullshit, why should these people get away with doing this kind of thing? So eventually I went to another police station in England, and they involved mental health like they tried to do before. Like at the previous police stations, they involved mental health, and this time they managed to section me. I was exhausted. This had been a couple of months kind of living in my car and then sleeping rough and staying in B&Bs and not really having an idea what I was going to do in my life. I thought maybe if I could get to the bottom of this, I could kind of go back and fix everything, and everything would go back to normal, the way that it was. That was kind of my feeling at the time, and I was exhausted. I was exhausted from running away. I didn't want to be in this position. I wanted my life back. I wanted my children back, And I thought maybe the police in England, maybe it's just the Scottish police that are corrupt. Maybe the police in England will help me. They never, they, like I said, they signposted me, or they never signposted me. They got mental health services involved. They took me to hospital. They made sure that I was taken to hospital, and then they held me in hospital under a psychiatric hold. And that was just, like I said, I'd been doing my own thing for a couple of months, and some of the shit was still kind of there, but not to an extent as it had been in Scotland, because I was moving around all the time, But obviously, I was my brain was in overdrive. I was constantly thinking of these things. But once they got me into a mental hospital, and I never even told them really half of what had happened. I only really kind of said that people had came into my house and they took my house off me, and they'd showed me these videos from throughout my life, and I don't know how they got them, and but I know who these people are, and I could name them, and I'd never been in any kind of mental health services before in my life. I was 42 at that point. So I thought honesty is the best policy, so I was kind of open with them to a certain extent. I wasn't telling them some stuff, holograms had been kind of put on the wall in front of me, and different sounds in my ears, and different things were put in my eyes. I never told them that because I thought that sounds fucking crazy. I don't want them to actually think I'm crazy. But I knew, like I've said before, I always had awareness that I wasn't crazy. I didn't kind of gaslight myself. I did think at times, going on, over the next few years, up until even now, I sometimes think maybe I'm reading a bit too much into things. They do induce a paranoia in you. So, I do sometimes get, think, oh, maybe I need to calm down a wee bit, and I'm reading a wee bit too much into that, But I never, I had no doubt about what had happened, and I knew who these people were, so I was really sure about what had happened. So anyway, they managed to get me into the mental hospital. They held me in a hospital for about a week, and then they managed to get me a place in this mental hospital. And let me tell you, I haven't, like I said, been kind of roaming about on my own for a couple of months. They had me now in this kind of prison, this contained space, and they very much went hard on it. The staff and the mental hospital was full of mentally ill people, and I don't mean the patients. The staff were fucking within a day, within 24 hours. One of them, this guy, started using directed conversation with me, and then they all began following suit. Things that had happened. He said to me at one point, I refused medication in the beginning, and he said to me at one point, you know, we will come in the middle of the night, we will pin you down and we will inject you. And obviously when they came into my house, the mob, you know, the police with the solicitor and with all these people, they'd brought the paramedics in afterwards, and it would be in the middle of the night where they'd come into my house and they'd pin me down and these paramedics injected me. So again, he's just like letting me know that, you know, we know what we've done to you in the past, and we're fucking damn sure that we're going to do it again, you know. So I did start taking medication, but only because they were offering me antipsychotics, and I was arguing with them going, I'm not psychotic, I'm like sitting by myself, I'm doing the crosswords in the paper, I'm reading. One nurse was bringing me books, but they were all the titles of them were all directed towards me, or the authors or the storylines would have something to do with my life, or something, you know. One of them was called Circe, CIRCE. My initials are EC, and I had a relationship with a guy called Ricky, who they always bring up, you know, so it's EC Rick, you know. And there was things like that, things about kind of witch trials, and I've got a tattoo that I'll probably show you eventually, and they've managed to put witch in this tattoo, you know. So all the books that she was bringing me all had a certain meaning, you know. It was kind of very interesting, but she was like a nice person. She was giving off the air of being really nice. And this guy that was using directed conversation, the guy that said he was going to pin me down in the middle of the night and inject me, he was like, oh, I'm just a nice guy, you know. And he always talked about his twins. They use that quite a lot as well. It's you know, they'll use twins and talking about twins. And one of the people that involved in cuckooing me from my house, Christian Forsyth, he has identical twin sisters, Lisa and Serena Forsyth. And one of them's a child psychologist, the other one's a graphic designer, along with their mother Linda Forsyth, who is a witch. And they're all in this network, you know. They groomed my oldest, those three women groomed my oldest child to turn against me. I don't mean groomed in a sexual way. Christian Forsyth is a child sexual groomer. He groomed a little girl who he'd known since she was 6 or 7. And then started a relationship with her when she was 14, 15, and he was in his 40s. But these groomed my daughter, you know, to kind of turn her against me kind of thing. So, you know, they'll constantly, there's someone shouting their dog in the background to try and put me off. So these, you know, twins is very much mentioned, and he would mention other things, you know, from my target. And again, a lot of the staff were in on it, but the staff that weren't in on it, you wouldn't have been aware, you know. They wouldn't be aware of what was happening because it's done very discreetly, it's done in that way. Anyway, they ended up giving me diazepam, and I was checked out alive at this point, you know. I didn't want to be here. I'd had everything taken from me. The two people that I loved were gone from my life, you know, and now these people are still. I'll tell you another thing. There was another nurse there. She was she was Romanian, and I left once. They let me out on leave, so they let you out for a cigarette with staff, and then eventually when they can trust you, they let you out on your own. So they did this, they let me out on my own, and I thought, fuck this, I'm going away to get a drink, you know, I've had enough of this shit. So I put on leggings and a black top on under the clothes that I was wearing. I'm standing in the rain now to try and wreck my phone. They know they can't mess with the phone because I can show my hands now and show that they're the ones messing with it. It's interesting, isn't it? Interesting how they play their little games. And cover you over so you don't get wet. Yeah, so I wore leggings and a top under it, and then I eventually came back. I came back the next day. I just wanted to get drunk because they were all fucking with me in this hospital. And then the next, you know, after I came back, she said, oh, it's getting so cold, the weather now. I'm going to have to start wearing leggings under my clothes. You know, because I'd put leggings and a top under my clothes, and then I changed on the bus when I got to the nearest city. So it was, again, just let me know, you know, we're watching everything. But she said to me at one point, she said, no one's doing. I said, why do you keep saying things about my past? Why do you keep saying things about my life? And she said, nobody's doing anything to you, Emma. This is just your guilty conscience. You know, it's absolutely pissing down now. They've made the rain. I'm going to end this and do it again when the rain stops. I'll do a part 2.